Now, how to compare the rent and the mortgage? I just put a scales here. Let's say we have the mortgage, the same $542 per month, and we have a rent of 250. 250 is something if that house for 100,000 would be rented to you with around 3% yield. So that's obvious, like rent is cheaper. Indeed, we need to look a little bit more deep like that. We know that this mortgage payment is the principal and the interest. And if you remember this thinking that the rent is like throwing money away to the wind, of course, getting something in exchange, the actual house to live in, and the interest is like throwing the money away to the wind, again, in exchange getting the money that for what you got the house to live in. But still, both of these are not investing. Both of these is just the cost. So rent versus the interest. So it would be more wise to compare just the money for the interest against the rent, because the principle is like saving. You put away some part of your cash to something which would be yours that appreciates over time, and that's very nice. So basically, you should compare just the interest against the rent. So which one is more expensive? In this case, we see that the difference is so small, $14 per month, that it's nearly the same. And basically, I encourage you to always compare the cost of money, the mortgage interest, against the total return for the real estate. That would be the most academical. So if you remember the total return for the real estate, that's 5 to 9% on average in those developed stable markets, at least for now, for this decade. Mortgage is something like from 4 to 6%. And I think that the difference, in order for you to buy, just from the financial side, should be at least, difference should be 2 times. It should not be like 1 percentage point. So if we have a hypothetical situation where we calculate that, okay, in this city over here, where the return for the real estate, I can think about that it would be around 9%. That's I'm choosing the best case. And the cost of mortgage is 4%. I would say there's a good business case of owning against renting. If it's a different one that you calculate and everybody talks, and you can talk with some experts that the return is more close to 5% when the mortgage is expensive and it costs 6%, there's no point of taking a loan and taking a mortgage loan and buying a house. Just continue renting it. Yeah, you won't be the owner, but it's just financially more wise decision. So always compare mortgage rate against total return for the real estate, more or less projected for the next 20 years. So despite that I said that I'm absolutely proponent for the renting, sometimes buying might be rational. First of all, that's the pure numbers. If in your case somehow the renting is more expensive than paying principal plus interest, definitely buy it. But you would never find such a situation. You should compare as you remember, the rent payments against the interest payments, average interest payments over the years. And if you see that the difference is just like 2 times, you might be purchasing or buying the house. Definitely, you should consider, are you really committed to staying in the same area for at least 5 to 7 years? Because there's no point of buying a house just for living in that area for 2 years. Also, there's another option, which is not so easy to quantify when buying a house makes sense. If just psychologically, if there's no other chances for you to save, again, psychologically, if you cannot take out, let's say, 10% out of your monthly expenses and invest it into the stock market or invest it into peer-to-peer lending platform or something else that generates you some yield. And the only way for you to save is taking a mortgage loan, having a big brother, the bank, just watching over your shoulder and demanding you to pay the principal back together with interest. That's the way that might be for you the only way of saving. If the alternative is spending it for the nice to haves, the dining out, the alcohol, the casinos, definitely take the big mortgage. Don't spend on all that stuff and force yourself into the saving situation. So this might be not a rational logic why to buy a house versus rent, but if this is the only way to make you save, fine, buy the house. Also, there might be another emotional factor. For some people, owning a house might be a lifetime goal. And it offers a big sense of security and that renting does not provide. And such emotional factors, it's harder to quantify. If you cannot sleep in a house that you are renting, you need to buy one.